Hello and welcome back. I'm Sachleen Singh, and today I'm going to take you through a game that I played on last Friday on the 25th of April 2025 on a Friday at Memphis Chess Club. Uh, it's called the Friday Night Games. So Memphis Chess Club provides multiple opportunities for you to play tournaments on for kids, I think on Tuesdays. And then you have Thursday, Friday, Saturday tournaments, and sometimes even Sunday also. So actually, a lot of days to play chess. Friday night tournaments go over a month, or for the duration of a month. So you can also pick single games, but you can also pay for the whole month. And then every Friday night you get to play 190 plus 30 game, and this is from one of those. Then this is from the second round. This game is from the second round that I played against a 1700 player, a player who I've respected a lot, and I've seen him play in multiple games and tournaments before, and I respect. And I was scared going into the like into this round because I knew how strong that player is, and his peak was well over 1900, I think, at one point. So I'm 1685 currently, from the previous published ratings, and he's 1706. So let's start. I had some prep, and we'll go through the game really quickly and explain what went through the whole game. So let's just get into it directly. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the rule of Hess, and a6, the most popular move, bishop a4, knight f6. It's a very dynamic move. People choose to play multiple things after castle. So after castle, black has a plethora of choices, starting with bishop e7, bishop c5, b5, knight takes e4. So multiple, again, bunch of things that go on. Even d6, h6, like you can pick, and you can throw a stone and everything is a move almost here. So bishop e7. So I've seen a couple of his games back. Again, he plays a lot in the Memphis Chess Club, so there's a lot of streams that this person had played already. And I ended up finding some of his old games and going through them. I knew that he was going to play bishop e7, rook e1, b5, bishop b3, d6. So I knew at this point would get to this position. And this was the first surprise I had planned for him. It's not very common, and I wanted to just see what he was going to do. Which again, I had some idea that he was going to play bishop b7, d3, castle king sides, 92, and here I think I expected him to go d6, and I had some really nasty surprises for him in the lines going further, but he deviated from my prep going knight b8. Knight b8 is really like, again, common idea in the roll of pairs where you're trying to redirect this knight to c5. Sorry, to c5 and a more active square than this. Uh, and I just carried on with my again plan, which is to go from knight b1, that basically taking the knight from b1 to d2 to f1 to the e3 or g3, and then eventually to f5 and trading off with this bishop. Ruler pairs again is a very slow opening. It takes you time to get to anywhere, so you really want to take your time maneuvering the piece to the best positions before you start with the attack or start with the breaks. So here I played knight e3, knight c5, and I'm not scared of giving up that pawn. I'm in fact more than happy to give away the pawn as it maroons the knight. So the problem here is that the knight on a4 is really bad. And he has no really good squares to go back to. So even if you go back to c5, you're sitting here running into a chain of pawns doing nothing. And if you have to make this knight work, you have to go from knight c5 to e6 to excuse me, f4, and even then I can go g3 and I'm still really happy, like just pushing this knight around. So this knight has problems, and in fact even if it goes back to b6, c4 and d5 are problematic. So I was okay giving up a pawn in exchange of more running like my opponent's knight, and I played knight f5, bishop c8, and here I think comes the first mistake of the game again from me, which I played d4. But let's look at what I should have played here. I should have played, again, a common idea, which is knight 3 h4. So the reason why this still works is because these two knights are actually competing for one square, and one of these knights, any of them, is actually just trying to give itself up so that knight can get the bishop pair. So you want to either exchange here or you want them to take and you take back. and white enjoys the bishop pair, and which is also the compensation for giving up the pawn. And then with interest, which is that this maroon knight is already bad. So you're happy to give up one of these knights, and black has to play a little bit more accurately here. But here I made my first mistake after he played bishop c8 was d4. So what I missed, not really missed, but what I didn't realize was that d5 now becomes unstoppable as he takes on e5, and there's no way I can take on e5, although it looks that I'm attacking two pieces, but since the knight moves and takes the pawn on e4, which is now defended by the bishop on f5, I have just lost a full piece and I'm down 3 points in material. Four actually, since I've given up this pawn also. So I cannot play d takes e5, so I have to play e takes f5, and now e4. Now the knight has to move somewhere, and this, I said, d5 was unavoidable. So I have to play either bishop g5, or I'm sorry, knight g5 or knight d2. And knight g5 has some like underlying problems. You start with d5, obviously not blundering knight, not blundering h6, because now you give the pawn back, and the knight has a defender. So after knight takes, rook takes is okay for white. But now, in fact, you want to play, sorry, after knight g5, you play d5 anyway, and now h6, and this is the problem now becomes that my knight has to settle down on h3, and my knight on h3 is no better than the knight on a4, and I'm a pawn down, so that's one other major problem. Anyway, so I go knight d2, and d5, and now I have to either attack the base or the head of the pawn chain, but the base of the pawn chain, again, very difficult to attack right away since there's a lot of pressure on the c4 square. So I start with the attacking with the head of the pawn chain, and he takes, I take back, and queen d7, which allows a little bit of counterplay. Now I think I didn't completely see everything here, but I still found an interesting idea to play. So if you turn off the engines and you're just looking at this position itself, I found this very interesting bishop b1 move, which indirectly defends this pawn on f5. So if you take, I have this c4 idea attacking the queen. But more importantly, I still stop this knight e4 idea, because he did play knight e4. And this is very annoying, because I don't want a knight sitting in the center of the board defended by a pawn, and I cannot just attack with anything. uh, Not looking so good. And again, I don't want to put a knight back on d2, and I've been shuffling this knight around, so it's not that good. But what I saw when I played bishop b1 was that I could play c4, and the problem is that you cannot take with either pawn. So you take with either pawn, you hang one of the knights, and if you take here, I think with this pawn, you hang this knight. So there are some problems with him, with c4 for him, and he can't take. So he ended up playing bishop b4, and I spent again a good amount of time here figuring out if I wanted to play knight e5, which is very natural because you're attacking the queen, and then you get rook f1 defending this, and then there's a bunch of complications here, which we will come to as that happened in the game. But I also wanted to, sorry, I also wanted to figure out if I could, instead of just taking, if I could just take, give up an exchange. So my idea is rook takes c4, d takes c4, bishop takes c4. Now I'm attacking the rook, and I also have this huge attack. But the problem becomes that once I play knight e5, the rook can just take, because this queen is now undefended and this pawn is pinned. So, and here knight g3 doesn't look really well. So the the the, the point of playing rook takes e4 is that you want to get this knight e5 with tempo attacking the queen, and then you threaten f6, and you have these like two bishops lined up, this knight lined up to sack somewhere. So if pawn push takes, and then you have this queen h5, queen f3 coming in, queen h3 coming in, and you have a bunch of attack. But as soon as I saw that knight e5 just loses to rook takes e5, I just gave up on the idea completely. So I went knight e5, and this comes with a lot, like this knight e5 move comes with a bag of tricks. So he takes, again, a very natural move, doesn't look like much is happening, but once you play rook f1, it becomes very natural to you that this whole file is actually being controlled by the rook, these two squares controlled by the knight. these squares taken by the queen, and this whole diagonal taken by the bishop, and this diagonal, this square taken by the pawn, this taken by the pawn. So suddenly the queen has only two squares to go, which is this and this. And if it goes back to like one of these squares, the problem is I just take, and now I'm attacking this knight and I'm attacking the queen. If the queen takes, I have this very sneaky bishop a2. And now again, with the bag of tricks, the other problem, which is that this bishop is, hold on, let's just use better colors here. This bishop is taking control of this diagonal, and this knight is taking control of this d7 square. So the queen can't even stay back to defend this pawn. So the queen would really like to be on d7 so that if you take, I take, and if you take, like, there is some way to defend some part, but the queen has to go back. And once the queen goes back, you take. And the idea of taking with the bishop, although it's the inferior of the three things that I could take with. So rook takes f7 is also good, but I think knight takes f7 is the absolute best. But I chose the worst one. But my idea was that if it takes back with the rook, I can take with the knight, and I still have this queen b3 idea with knight h6 smothered mate tactics. But apparently knight takes f7 is just like that much better. Bishop takes f7 is still winning, still very much winning. And after, I think he went on to go king h8, and now I played this sneaky knight queen h5. I'm sorry. So, and I was expecting him to go like one of these moves, and then there is still mate incoming. But with queen d4 check, since I've just relinquished the support of the d4 pawn, I have to go king h8, and there's no smothered mate again, and there's nothing, there's no tactic. So if knight f2, rook takes f2. So if knight f2, rook takes f2, there's no mate because the queen covers that square, so that's not a problem. Anyway, so after king h1, he has to take here because I'm threatening knight g6 mate. So if, let's say, he plays any other weird move, knight g6 is mate, and there's no way the king can hold. This pawn is pinned. And it's a fairly common idea. Anyway, going back. He has to take. So now he has to take. Since knight g6 is really very strongly threatened. Rook takes f7, knight takes f7, and king g8. And now here comes a position where I think you should pause and think what wins. And that is the most important part here. And one of the organizers, Mike Shuri, actually pointed out the move. Actually, I also saw it on the board. I just felt like it was not as winning as the one that I found. Although the case is opposite. I think now the engine says that the other move is absolutely a little bit like, I mean, it's still 1.2 more winning, 1.2 pawns more winning than the other one, which is interesting. So there's a couple of moves that you can play. One was queen e2 that I realized, and I was like, okay, queen e2, and then if, let's say, rook f8, and I can play on for it, but I'm up in exchange, I can like nurse this to victory. But I don't like this too much, so I went on for the more dynamic play, which is knight g5. And the idea is that if you go knight takes, knight f2 check, and you're trying to smother me, I'll just sack the rook back, but then I have queen h7, queen h8. And I have some ideas to go on. We'll come back to that variation because that is what happened in the game. But the disgusting part that you should actually find, if you paused and you spent some time, you would see bishop e3. And this is so horrendous, so horrendous. So you're really not allowing any of those knight f2 tactics. Now you've connected the rooks. There's practically nothing happening. Like, you take away every little thing that black wanted to play for, you just take it away. And after queen e3, queen d5, and now I'm threatening the queen takes 8 with check. I'm threatening this whole smothered mate shenanigan. And if queen knight f2, the idea is rook takes f2, queen takes f2. Now I cannot go knight h6 because the problem with knight h6 is that once I like sack, the queen holds the f2 square, so I have to go knight g5. And after king h8 or king f8, doesn't really matter. Queen takes a8, bishop takes bishop f8 or queen f8. I'm an exchange up. He has 2 pawns for the exchange, but I have to really like still play on. And this is why I rejected this variation, because I felt like this was not as winning as I thought it was. And I would have to like play on for a little bit more. And I thought that the dynamic position would give me a little bit better odds to win here. So I played knight g5. And the idea is that, again, if you go knight takes f2, rook takes f2, I have this very strong queen takes h7 with the attack. And he has to go king 8, king f8, which is forced. I go queen h8, king e7, and now I shouldn't really like run to take on a8 because queen f1 is mate, so I have to give another check. And now he has three moves, and each of them loses, but I'll show exactly why each of them loses. So queen, so I think I saw this when I was like calculating knight g5. Not everything, but I saw most of it. So I was really happy like having a position here. So if king d6, I think just knight e4 is forking the king and the queen, and it's just GG's. Uh, what happened in the game was king d8, and that's a fairly simple win after knight e6, and I'll show that. But the trickier one would have been king e8, and then I have to find this queen g8. And let's say if queen f8, queen g6 first. Now if the king tries to run, we get this beautiful idea where the king's trapped and the queen has to sacrifice itself. And this will come up in multiple variations. So let's say queen f8, queen g6, and if the king tries to run with king d7, we just saw this one. I think if king d8, I just get this knight d6 forking the king and the queen. And if king e7, and we just take one more extra move and we find the same position, and again the queen has to give itself up. So queen f8 doesn't work, and now if bishop f8, you have I think maybe I saw this one, is that I go king queen e6, and now the king has to come back, and now I have queen c6. The problem is again here that if the king moves at any point in time, the king can only go to these two squares since the knight holds the f7 square. I take on 8 with check, so black doesn't have time to even check me for one move, and then I just move the bishop out in one of these places, and my my rook defends my last rank. So I'm more than happy to like just play into this. But what he played after queen takes g7 here was he chose the more easier of the options, which made it very easy to finish the game here because I started with knight e6. And now if the king goes to c8, I just take on c7 and its mate. So he has to go king e8, and after knight c7 again, king d8. I do not have to rush to take on a8 because he can mate, so I have to defend this first with bishop g5 check, and this does two things: it defends and it also opens all the ways to take on a8. And once I took on a8, he resigned, and that was game. And now I'm a full rook up, plus I have an extra pawn. Like that's more than enough for me to like take it from here, and there's barely anything that black can do. Uh, but let's recap this game really quickly. So I think one thing, like there's a couple of takeaways from here. One is that you can obviously learn a lot of tactical ideas from the whole of the situation. And then I think what else you can learn from the whole of this is that you will make mistakes, and so will your opponent. So if you're an intermediate player like I am, 15, 16, 14, from probably from 1300 to like 1900, you're an intermediate player. Now there's multiple classes in US chess, but let's say you are somewhere between this range from 13 to 1900, you will make mistakes. That's the truth of the game, and your opponent will also make mistakes. That's also the truth of the game. So all you have to do is, when you're making mistakes, do not let yourself down, and you come back stronger from that position. And you keep playing, you keep solving the puzzles on the board, keep solving problems on the board, and that will keep you going in one direction or the other. And then one more thing that I would like to like I think point out is that you probably need to also know how to play the man more than the board at some point, because playing the board is very important, but objectively best moves are also a little bit difficult to find. Although if you're playing a 90 plus 30, you should find all the objectively best moves. But if you're playing a shorter time control, you really need to also know what the person likes to play, what the person doesn't like to play at some point. And that helps. That little information will also help you to like pick and choose positions that you want to play, and then they don't like to play too much. So you want to play more strategic, more tactical, and some of those little ideas that can give you a little time buffer or some other little edge that you require. But with that, I think I would like to end. Thank you for watching. If you liked this, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and have a nice day.